in light of Mother Akasha's discourse, and she would like us to enter into the one release new dispensation. So we'll go to page 24. And so we're going to be doing work with her today, and she's going to be working with Archangel Michael. And our command line will be release new dispensations to stop the war in Syria. And we'll just follow through. The preamble will be, Mighty I Am Presence, beloved Archangel Michael, and your uncountable legions of angels, under the authority of the great divine director, and then we go right into, we demand every power. Okay? So do you want to practice the preamble one more time? Mighty I Am God Presence, Archangel Michael, and your uncountable legions of angels, under the authority of the great divine director. And then we demand every power and force. Okay? We're good? Okay. Let us form an image of Archangel Michael. There's many beautiful images that are out there. Let's all hold our attention upon him. And beloved Archangel Michael, from out of the great love flame within our hearts, we say to you, we love you, we love you, we love you. We bless you, we bless you, we bless you. We thank you, we thank you, we thank you. Together, mighty I Am God Presence, Archangel Michael, and your uncountable legions of angels, under the authority of the great divine director, we demand every pore and force of the sacred fire come forth and blaze through the minds, feelings, and bodies of all people on earth, to purify and remove all selfishness and to stop the war in Syria. Release new dispensations, release new dispensations, release new dispensations to stop the war in Syria. Almighty God I Am, release new dispensations, release new dispensations, release new dispensations to stop the war in Syria by God's own hand. Release new dispensations, release new dispensations, release new dispensations to stop the war in Syria, the ascended Master's way. And do it today, do it to stay. Force the purification, force the purification, force the purification that stops and prevents the war in Syria. Force the purification, force the purification, force the purification that stops and prevents the war in Syria. Force the purification, force the purification, force the purification that stops and prevents the war in Syria. By the cosmic Christ blue lightning power and victory. By the cosmic Christ blue lightning power and victory. By the cosmic Christ blue lightning power and victory, with oceans of the great central sun's sacred fire purity, with oceans of the great central sun's sacred fire purity, with oceans of the great central sun's sacred fire purity. Almighty Christ I Am, Almighty Christ I Am, Almighty Christ I Am. I am mighty victory's victory of all that we decree to our spiritual hierarchy, our ascended and angelic host, now made manifest in all his glory, now made manifest in our being and world. God bless mighty victory. Almighty victory I am, almighty victory I am, almighty victory I am. Deep breath. Thank you, precious hearts. And let us offer our love and our gratitude to Mother Akasha, Archangel Michael, and his uncountable legions of angels. My beloved untouchable roses, Akasha is with you. It is the will of God that expresses through every angel. It is the will of God that expresses through the spiritual hierarchy of our system of worlds. It is the will of God that expresses as the Director Logos, the great divine director, to bring an end to the war in Syria. I thank you. A previous effort by Archangel Michael was called upon by all of you a few years ago. As Michael reported, the hatred that has entered into the peoples, whether it is the dictatorship, the government, the rebel forces, or the people that have suffered such crimes. The hatred is so great, and the will, the personal will, is holding that hatred. There is very little that Michael could do, except to provide protection and safety to those Syrians who sought to flee for freedom and the protection of their families. Over this horrible war, the period of this war, more than 7 million Syrians have fled Syria and are refugees in various places around the world. If you have an opportunity to meet any of the Syrian refugees, you will hear stories that are nothing short of miracles. The moments that were at hand, that if they were not rescued, if a United Nations Jeep was just not there around the corner, if some Syrian Turkish forces were there to rescue them, a moment later it would have been too late. Thousands are the stories that Syrian refugees have of the miraculous means in which they escaped the horror that has been unfolding in Syria. And as you know, precious hearts, when it comes to seeming miracles, they are not accidents. They are some higher power that often works through an individual, even if that individual knows not that it is occurring. Thus, Michael could not use his influences to bring about the end of the war in Syria. And therefore he turned his attention to those individuals who sought to flee Syria and to provide them the protection and, where it was possible, the means to leave a nation they once loved. And we thank him for it. Please make yourself comfortable. And now, precious hearts, as we call for a new dispensation, it must come under the authority of the director himself, and then that authority passed on to the Archangel Michael. The idea of this specific dispensation is for Michael to lead his uncountable angels of the cosmic blue flame. The idea here is not to shower or strike the blue flames into the people who know not of this vast knowledge, and there is no time to teach them. There is no hope to deliver unto them what their own will would oppose, for they are not illumined. The idea has come that because of changes that have been brought to your attention through the planetary class, that the four elements through their gods have spoken to the ascended hosts that live in the fifth dimension of your planet. And they have put your ascended host on notice, whether it be Aries or Virgo, Neptune, or Helios. They have spoken to the ascended host, who are your elders of your race, who live in the fifth dimension, and they have stated there is no more room for the elements to take on any more of the discord placed upon them by the people of earth. There is no more room. So as discord continues to be placed upon the elements have been commanded by their four God beings to release that discord immediately back to the people, rather than allowing that discord to gain any further momentum and increase. Do you understand? Yes. So this is a new situation. And as I have shared in class and others have shared in the planetary class, meteorologists themselves have said we have entered a time where they cannot explain away every kind of weather situation or predicament or storms that even come in the wrong seasons. Helios and others are doing what they can. With Aries, the air element, the wind element, the molecular nature of the atmosphere, in creating new types of auroras that are quite startling in terms of what you're used to seeing as an aurora. I'm saying it the right way. And whole new ways in which they will sweep across as if an arc, as if a rainbow, and sweeping down with sacred fire. So there are great new things that are afoot. And the importance of these new dispensations to assist all areas. So because of what the elements have spoken and said to the director Logos, this actually creates an opportunity for him to use his authority, direct the Archangel Michael. The people are not ready yet to receive the purification and the removal of the war entity from their emotional bodies. However, because the elements have spoken, we can shower the atmosphere over Syria. We can shower the atmosphere. We can shower what little of the water element is there. Well, part of Syria has a coast, yes? Correct? And we can shower the sacred fire from the earth coming up. So again, with this war, and it seems to be in its closing chapter, because the dictatorship and the Russians have destroyed so many people's lives. The last outpost of the rebel forces have all but been destroyed. They have one last stronghold in Syria, and that area is being bombed about 6 times every hour. Every hour, until the last of the rebel forces are wiped out. And of course, the loss of life is so severe. What the people don't know, and for the longest time, what you didn't know, was how much pressure was on your own lives. Pressure of discord that's in your Earth's atmosphere. Do you remember the times in discourses years ago? And we said we had to bring you to the place where the only pressure upon you is the pressure of God. We've got to seal you from the pressures of the outer world. You would be amazed, precious heart. because you've had it happen over a series of years. But if it had suddenly happened, where the pressure of the world was upon you, and then it wasn't upon you, you would notice it as a very stark difference. You've gotten used to it. You've gotten familiar with it, the absence of that pressure. Because over years and your calls to the sacred fire, it is lessened as you have built up your walls of invisibility, as you've used your tube of light, you have become less and less sensitive to the world pressure that builds and builds and builds in the atmosphere of the earth, where the sinister force exists. Understood? Yes. So imagine if we can. And so, of course, these things are talked about before they are presented to you. So we've taken to Michael, we've brought Michael in. I have been over to the fifth dimension. I've spoken with the director logos, spoken with the cosmic beings that have thus far come into the planetary classes, those who are yet to come in this year, and knowing that the elements have spoken. Thus far and no further, they have given the command. Keep placing your discord upon it. We're not going to let it build. We're just going to immediately give it back. And by the way, when we give it back to you, we'll add some of the storehouse of discord you've placed upon us over the centuries. We'll give a little more of that back as well. So there's an opportunity here for us, and that is the promise of the director in his role as the Mahachohan, because the four gods of the four elements have pleaded with him to release dispensations that will help the four elements throw off immediately discord that is suddenly imposed upon them, and assist them to do that, because the elements don't wish you harm, but at some point they're saying, no, you pollute the oceans, we'll pollute you. That's the way it is now. So as long as you make a difference, you serve, you love the powers of nature, you bless the powers of nature each day, then you become marked. But you are marked with the grace of God. And by some miracle, as a tornado rips through town, your home is the only one that's left standing. You talk to people that live in towns in the Midwest of the United States, and you hear the miracle stories of streets wiped out, houses, trailers, but one house here, one trailer over there remains standing. And so, you are a strong student body now. Let us be one. God doesn't work directly and say, I disapprove of war. War doesn't exist in God's consciousness. God can only express what it feels about war through God's individualizations. Every angel and ascended master is in a different kind of an individualization of God, a fully conscious one. Do you think any ascended master approves of the war in Syria? No. Yet they are the full, infinite, accomplished individualization of God. Yes. And so they are being leaned upon. The director Logos' office is being leaned upon. His office as Mahachohan has been leaned upon. The four elements that are saying, we're not going to take humankind's discord back anymore. Even though this is the worst time. They know, from a human standpoint, of what must be cleared from this planet, that for the elements to give back to the people the discord that's imposed upon them, it couldn't happen at a worse time. But there's a bright spot here, because the four cosmic beings have come to the director and said, we cannot stop our elements. They will respond with the same. You know what the elements do. They respond. So you've got to understand that Helios, Virgo, Aries, Neptune, very serious meetings in the director's office and his role as Mahachohan. Literally saying, Neptune saying, and Neptune and Poseidon, beloved hearts. They have absolute control of every ocean and every sea and large body of water. Now that's the truth. However, due to the words of the elements, hear this. Hear this. Neptune standing in the director, or rather the Mahachohan's authority and presence, and saying, I cannot stop. If the oceans rise, I cannot command them to settle down. It's out of control. They speak as one voice. They are responding like the impersonal I am does. Respond. But they're going to respond now and give it all back. And so the four beings come to the director as the Mahachohan for help, and warns the director that the elements are going to throw it all back now. That is a certain calamity for the people of Earth. Typhoons, hurricanes, volcanoes, earthquakes, and anything you've seen in the last 200 years is child's play compared to what's coming unless something's done. And that's why the four beings represented by the gods of the elements came to the authority of the Mahachohan and said, we can't stop them. We cannot stop them. Mighty Helios, he is the sun god of the fire element. You think he doesn't have the power to put out physical fire? He can put out every physical fire that ever exists. And he says, I can't. The writing's been on the wall. And it increases every year. What did you have a couple of years ago in Fort McMurray in Alberta? What did you have this last fire season in California that extended right into winter? And they all stood up. They all said the same thing. We cannot use our power to stop them anymore because they have warned us. And we have to wash our hands free of it. It's like your children growing all up and your children being smarter than you. And your children saying, no, we're not going to do it that way anymore. You took on the things of this world, we're not. What are you going to do as a parent? You going to object to that? So, but there's a bright spot in this, and that's why the beings went to the director Mahachohan. Take up the idea of new dispensations, to release the sacred fire into the four elements. Under the new release, the new dispensations authority. This is a new authority that was not here in 2011. And let's saturate so that the atmosphere is saturated. So that as the elements throw back, then that discord can be consumed, cleansed, purified, evaporated immediately. Now, of course, then I walk into the room because I'm called, and I walk in at the right time. And when I did walk into the room and I said, let's start with Syria right now. And let's work with Michael's uncountable legions of the cosmic blue flame. And let's make sure that the entire atmosphere of Syria is drenched in the sacred fire. Drenched. And let's get that sacred fire into the earth element. Every element. So that's what's going to happen. And may the will of our student body be one, and calling to Archangel Michael under the authority of the divine director to release unlimited dispensations that stops the war in Syria. Now, you know, precious hearts, there was a recent discourse, very recently, and it was released to you, revealed to you, why countries, so you don't need to ask this question anymore. Why aren't countries stepping in and stopping the war? They can't. They cannot. They have been warned. Syria is the country of the earth's secrets. The earth's secrets are hidden in tombs. At this very hour, many of those secrets, the history of the earth itself, are times of greatness, times of darkness, all hidden in great tombs. Why would a man be mad enough to see his whole people wiped out?